Greg Thompson sat in his modest Melbourne flat, winding down after a tiring day at work. A chilled beer rested in his hand as he relaxed in the quiet evening. When his phone buzzed, he hoped it was a message from his daughter, Emily. They hadn't spoken in a while, and he longed to hear about her wedding plans. But instead of a text, it was a photo, an ornate wedding invitation. His chest tightened when he realized it wasn't sent to him directly, but posted on Emily's Instagram story. The card looked stunning, with golden lettering and delicate floral borders. The details were unmistakable. Emily and Lucas were to be married on October 12th at Golden Hills Estate in Sydney, tomorrow. Greg stared at the glowing screen, numb. He knew the day was approaching, but deep inside he had clung to the hope that Emily's silence was an oversight, that she couldn't possibly exclude him from the most important day of her life. Scrolling down, he saw congratulatory comments from relatives, friends, and acquaintances. Everyone seemed aware, except him. His pulse quickened with hurt and disbelief. Grabbing his phone, he dialed Emily's number. Straight to voicemail. He tried again and once more, only voicemail. His grip on the phone tightened, fury rising within him. Then a message arrived from his ex-wife, Sophie. "Greg, don't make this harder. Emily made her choice. Please respect it. We don't need trouble tomorrow. Trouble. Respect." The words cut into him. He slammed the phone down, old memories flooding back. Memories of Sophie and Dan Murray, the man who destroyed his marriage. Dan had always hovered close to their family, and Greg had long suspected something was wrong. His suspicions proved true when Sophie's affair came to light, shattering their marriage. And now, unbelievably, Dan was the one set to walk Emily down the aisle. The betrayal replayed in his mind. The divorce, Sophie's cold confession, the empty years that followed. Emily had been his anchor, his only child, and he thought nothing could sever their bond. Yet now it felt as though he'd been erased from her world. He thought back to better days, when he and Sophie were young and full of dreams, building a life together. But as her career advanced, she drifted away. Late nights, unexplained trips, distant smiles. Greg ignored the signs until he found undeniable proof in her messages with Dan. Confronting her only confirmed what he feared. She hadn't been happy for years, she said. That was the beginning of the end. After their separation, Emily's time was divided, between Greg's modest place and Sophie's lavish home. Slowly, Sophie's influence overshadowed Greg's presence, and he became a fading figure in Emily's life. Now, sitting alone, the pain became unbearable. His daughter, the little girl he raised with love, had chosen to shut him out of her wedding. His chest ached, but one thought hardened in his mind. He would not be pushed aside so easily. He decided then he would be there, invited or not. He pulled on his best suit, an old navy one that still fit, and combed his hair. Though the years showed on his face, there remained a flicker of strength. Grabbing his keys, he began the long drive toward Golden Hills Estate, the vineyard where the ceremony was set. The journey gave him hours to reflect, his emotions colliding inside him. When he finally arrived, the estate spread before him in all its beauty, rolling green hills, endless vineyards, and a white chapel gleaming in the center. Exactly the kind of elegant setting Sophie would choose. So different from the simpler wedding Greg once imagined for his daughter. Parking nearby, he listened to the hum of music and chatter from the guests. Though uninvited, he didn't care. Emily was all that mattered. He edged closer, keeping out of sight as he scanned the crowd. There was Sophie, radiant in a designer gown, laughing with friends. At her side, Dan, confident and composed, his hand resting on her back, the man who had taken everything from Greg. Then his eyes found Emily. She was breathtaking in her gown, glowing as she laughed with her bridesmaids. Greg's heart clenched. He hadn't seen her in so long. A wave of love and sorrow rushed through him. Then Dan stepped up to her, resting a hand on her shoulder. She smiled at him, the same smile she once gave her father. The music shifted. Emily looped her arm with Dan's, ready to walk down the aisle. Greg's chest burned. It was too much. With determination hardening into action, he stepped forward. One stride, then another. The cheerful murmur of the crowd faltered, replaced by silence as all eyes turned toward him. Sophie saw him first, her face draining of color. She whispered urgently to Dan, who turned with a scowl. Whispers spread through the gathering as tension swept the celebration. Sophie approached, voice sharp and controlled. "Greg," she began, but he no longer cared for her words. Emily finally noticed him. Their eyes locked. Her face paled, and in that brief pause time seemed to stop. Greg saw it, the guilt, the confusion, and maybe a spark of regret shining in her eyes. Her voice, soft and trembling, broke the silence. Her voice barely rose above a whisper, but it was enough. "Emily." Greg's reply carried across the gathering, steady yet filled with years of buried pain. "Love you. I've always loved you. And I thought I'd be the one walking you down the aisle today." Sophie opened her mouth to cut him off, but Greg pressed on. "I don't understand what came between us, why you felt I couldn't be here, but I'm your father. I've stood by you your whole life. I deserve to be part of this moment." Emily's eyes brimmed with tears as she glanced from her father to Dan, who stood awkwardly in silence. "Dad," she stammered, trembling. "I didn't invite you because I thought it would be easier. Mom said it would cause less tension this way." Greg shook his head gently, his voice low but unshaken. "Easier for who, Emily? For you, or for them?" His words lingered heavily in the air. Emily's face crumpled, sorrow overtaking her. "Sorry, Dad. I'm so sorry," she sobbed, stepping toward him. Without hesitation, Emily collapsed into Greg's arms. He held her tightly, his own tears streaming as they embraced. The crowd remained silent, moved by the rawness of the moment. Sophie stood frozen, her arms crossed, her expression stiff. Dan shifted uneasily but kept quiet. Greg ignored them both. This moment was only about Emily. "I'm sorry I didn't invite you, Dad," Emily whispered again through her tears. I thought after the divorce you didn't want to be part of my life anymore." Greg pulled back just enough to look her in the eyes. "Sweetheart, how could you ever believe that? You've always been my everything. Nothing could change that." Emily's voice cracked, hesitant yet full of longing. "Will you still walk me down the aisle, Dad?" Greg's chest swelled with pride. "Course I will." They linked arms, and together stepped toward the altar as the music swelled around them. It wasn't the vision Greg once held, but it was real, and it was theirs. At the front, he placed Emily's hand in Lucas's with a firm, heartfelt nod. "Take care of her," he said, his voice rough with emotion. Lucas nodded with quiet understanding. Greg stepped back into the crowd. He had fought for his place in his daughter's life, and in that moment, he knew he had earned it. Later, under the glow of lights strung across the vineyard tent, Greg sat quietly, watching Emily laugh among her friends and family. She was radiant, full of life, and for the first time in years he felt peace. Sophie eventually approached, her expression tight with frustration. "You just couldn't stay away, could you?" she muttered, arms folded, glare sharp. Greg faced her calmly, his tone resolute. "This isn't about you, Sophie. It's about Emily. She needed her father today, and I wasn't going to fail her." Sophie scoffed, rolling her eyes. "She was fine without you." Greg shook his head, his gaze unwavering. "Well, she wasn't. And deep down you know that." For a moment, Sophie faltered, her pride wavering before she turned and walked away without another word. Greg watched her leave, not with bitterness, but with clarity. He had won the only battle that truly mattered. As the evening slowed and the reception softened, Greg stood at the edge of the dance floor. Emily approached with Lucas beside her, her smile gentle and grateful. "Dad," she said softly, her eyes shining. "Thank you for being here, for everything." Greg's smile was warm as he embraced her once more. "I wouldn't have missed it for the world." They held each other close, father and daughter, bridges slowly being rebuilt. The wounds of the past would take time to heal, conversations still needed to be had, but for the first time in years, Greg felt something return to him: hope. Hope that the rift between them could be mended. Hope that their bond could grow even stronger. As Emily and Lucas shared their first dance, Greg sat at his table, his heart lighter than it had been in years. He had lost much along the way, but tonight, he had reclaimed something priceless: his place in his daughter's life. And as the music carried on, Greg realized that love, true, enduring, unconditional love, always finds a way back.